Thank you so much if you're joining me on catch up. And if you join me live, feel free to interrupt, say hi and where you're calling from, and ask me any questions. I'm going to be talking today about what's happening in classes in maths lessons for children aged 9 to 11 after lockdown, where there's a lot of interventions going on and there are a lot of issues. I know, because I'm currently teaching 12 intervention classes a week. It is a lovely job. I can make so much difference to children's lives, and I am learning so much because these are such extreme situations that I'm seeing things I've never seen before, and it's making me think ever so deeply. So I'm going to do 3 things today. I'm going to talk about what I've been doing with children, what I've been finding, and how I've been dealing with that. I'm going to talk about some key unexpected gaps. Spoiler alert, one is length and measuring, and another is actually reading fractions and having a visual image of fractions. It's huge gaps that I didn't expect them to go much lower, and I'll talk about what's going on with those and how I'm tackling them. And a bit of the art of being an intervention teacher, how you make children are desperate to come to your sessions and really enjoy them. So if that sounds relevant to you, it's likely to be relevant to you if you teach children of this age, or if you're an interventionist, I think it's called in the States, at all. Age 9 to 11, I'm talking really about 4th and 5th grade in the States, or upper key stage 2 in England, primary 6, primary 7 in Scotland. If you'd like to post where it is where you are, then I'll know. Okay, let's get started. So, first thing with these groups, when I first got them, I've had them for 8 weeks now. It's a 12-week block for each group. Had to start on really easy maths. And there were 2 reasons for that. Firstly, it was essential for diagnostics and early interventions. But the other was I was trying to switch these children on, because a lot of these children are feeling totally overwhelmed by maths. They have to feel that their sessions in intervention are sessions where they are doing the maths and they're really trying. So you have to go low to start with. So I was doing a few things. I was using 5s and 1s. How quickly could they recognise it? Could they describe how they got it? I had some tally things. Were they counting in 1s? Hi, I can see people starting to join. If you're watching, please do post any questions or just say hi. How do they see that that's 17? Getting every child to articulate their own thinking. Similar things on a rec and rec, recognising structure. So we did a bit of that. We did just some calculations. Hi. Calculations within 20. Wherever you see worksheets, they're free to download in my Facebook group, which is Expert Primary Maths Teaching. You just go to the file section and they're there. Fast addition, fast subtraction from my fast addition and subtraction worksheet, where they're just breaking the number into 2 parts in order to make it an easy addition. And of course, we were representing that with bead strings and getting to instantly recognise numbers on bead strings, harder than you might think, but it gets them talking. Recognising numbers on poppets was really popular, and how do you say that is 36? How do you see it quickly? Counting 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, getting them to articulate that, become consciously aware of it. So that was the really easy starts to the lesson. The second part was building from what they're doing in class. So early on, the target was long multiplication. So for a lot of these children, I was working on simple multiplication sheets where they were just multiplying by one number, multiplying by 2 for those who were struggling most with blocks, building 2 of the number, putting it back together, see how that relates to the standard method. And starting to see some of the really deep struggles they're having with easy calculations and work on those. Whereas for children who are a bit more confident, it would be getting them to try and do what they've done in class, so you can watch their methods of working and how the teachers taught them, and sort of puzzle out why they're struggling and help them to overcome the difficulties that they're facing. So there's a bit of that, and for the children who flew with that in a session, I then moved them on to the third part of this session, which was about early diagnostics. So going back to the maths they were doing when they were about 7 years old, and giving them questions across the width of the curriculum and puzzling out what they can and can't do. I've got these propeller boards. So I've been working with year 6s in England, and there are boards for years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and they are just exactly what I've just described, that you use them for intervention and diagnostics across the whole curriculum. And I was generally using the boards targeted at years 2 and 3. And that was where very quickly I noticed in these questions, every child was asked saying they didn't know how many centimetres there were in a metre. And that's how I started to explore length. So that's where we began. And quite quickly we moved on to a 3-part, it's an hour intervention I do, 3-part structure where we were doing hard-hitting core numeracy first thing, and then trying to teach 2 other topics to sort of age 7 to 9 level, so that as they hit those teaching them ahead of what they're doing in class, so that they become like normal classes to teach for the teachers later on in the year. As we moved on to division, I was working around, we work on standard sheets, and here a lot of children would struggle to write out their 7 times table, which they would need to do, and you'd look at why and make sure they were seeing 7 and counting on their fingers and confidently doing it. You'd find some children really had no idea how to do that. They were relying on having memorised their 7 times table. And then if you look here, they would get 9 7s are 63, and they'd want to subtract 63 from 65. Some were struggling with that, and they didn't know how to count on. They'd been told it was a subtraction, and they didn't see a subtraction was counting on. And some, when they counted on, they were counting 63, 64, 65. So you had to really drill that it's 64, 65. Just watching them. And in those small groups, you can really do that. I started with groups of 3. I've shuffled them slightly. We've got 3 groups of 3. If I've got 5 children who are really flying and are really comfortable and confident and are articulate, I can put them into one group and see them once a week. And then that leaves me with a group of 4 that I can then see twice a week. So I can do a lot more with. So they've got more time to work through the same stuff. All that kind of thing going on. And kind of topics I've been teaching. So 3-part lesson structure, and as we're moving on now, we're coming into week 9 and the hard-hitting numeracy. Let's see what I've got here. I've got some sheets. Getting on to much tougher stuff that's challenging them because I can't just see them. Hang on. Yeah. So this is a sheet for next week. Hi, if you've just joined, if you want to say hi. And this is 4 operations with large numbers. And now they're not scared anymore. They want to have a go because they know we've established a culture that it's absolutely fine to fail and to struggle, and that it's good when you struggle because you're going to learn a lot, and I am going to help, and I'm not going to let you just sink. And it takes time to do that, it really does. But now I know we can have a go at this and see what they can and can't do and squeeze out a few more misunderstandings. We'll look at how for the first 3 operations you start with 1s, and for division you're starting with the large numbers, and that's a contradiction, and just working around them. And then we are teaching. So I mentioned earlier length and measuring. It's a massive gap. These children have been at home and they've been on IT, so they have not been using rulers and paying attention to them. So with all my classes, we've paid attention to the millimetres within the centimetres, how many are there, and come to understand that they're the smallest measurement you can do with your fingers where they're not touching. And centimetres, deep understanding. I have a metre stick so they can really see there's 100 centimetres in a metre. And I get them to do with their hands millimetre, centimetre, metre, and then we check their metres with the measure stick. We have had them stepping a metre, and if they don't step an accurate metre, they have to go back and do it again. So it's a real multisensorial physical experience of a metre. And then I had a worksheet. Let's just find it. All these worksheets are free. You can find a list of them at authenticmaths.co.uk/worksheets. This one had some lines to measure, because of course some children really didn't know how to use a ruler, how to put it on starting at 0. So there are 3 there that are whole numbers of centimetres, and we asked them to puzzle them out as millimetres as well. And then we've got 3 on here that are not whole numbers of centimetres, and they had to write them in centimetres and millimetres, in centimetres as decimals, and they needed a lot of help with that, but just reassuring them that we're going to come back to decimals. So just run with me for now, and for some of them it helped, and for some of them it was just a bit of exposure. And then just in millimetres, so all that stuff going on, but with real visualisation with the ruler just there. And then on the back of this sheet, it's blank on one side, so you can fold it and stick it in their books. But this other one was about converting metres to centimetres, and we had the metre stick there. And that's where I came to understand that quite a lot of children could not read that. They did not know that that was a half. I mean, a lot of these gaps, you think they'll just go back 2 years, because that's how long COVID's lasted. But of course, a lot of healing of earlier gaps goes on during that time. And we've really never had a situation like this where you've had these kinds of things exposed. So hopefully this will help you tune into the kinds of things you might come across. So they were struggling with that, and they struggled even more with the idea of 2.5 at a much deeper level than I'd expected them to. So then took them on to do a lot of work with fractions, on the very foundations of fractions. Now, if I was a class teacher, I'd normally teach with an interactive proportion bar model, but I haven't got IT, and so I've been working with my pizza parts, and these are amazing, so powerful to teach with. It's a game. I just chuck out the game parts and use the pizza parts. So we have different size unit fractions: a quarter, a fifth, a sixth, an eighth, a tenth, a 12th, and of course a half. And after letting them play, you do have to let a lot of the children play with this equipment at first. I'd get them to build whole pizzas, and I would write a calculation, a half plus a third plus a sixth equals 1, and show them that that's the calculation for the pizza they've just built. But then we would have, paying attention to the fact that there are 8 eighths in a whole, getting them all to realise that for themselves just by building it. But then we've moved on to this worksheet that's also available. This is on equivalent fractions that they've actually had to build with the pizza parts. So a half is how many eighths, and so on. How many twelfths are equal to a third? And they build it, and we have the different types of pizza parts in piles. And over time, you find that they really know what a half is, and they can reach for it instantly, and they're starting to recognise a third and think about and have internal visual images of all these sizes of fractions, where they just didn't before. And of course, because it's multisensorial and it's visual, they're not going to lose it all the second they leave the classroom, as they do with abstract work that they haven't properly understood. This will become part of their consciousness, part of their dreams, and their brains will work on it and gradually make more sense of it. And you really see that happening. It's great, even with some of my children with the most challenges, they're doing amazing work with fractions because this works for them. There's also a sheet on fraction calculations. So didn't give them any shortcuts, no noticing that you multiply the numerators and the denominators by the same thing. We started to use denominator as vocabulary to talk about the type of fraction they're reaching for, and the numerator to say how many, but I didn't give them that abstract method. I'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks when we touch back on this, Notice that you multiply the numerators and the denominators by the same thing. And then we'll have a go at this, which I've prepared, which is just some simple fraction calculations which use the equivalent fractions. I think I've corrected that. If I haven't, I'll try and go back and do that one today. It's a little mistake there. And they can use this new abstract equivalent fraction method to do these and then check them with the pizza parts. So, and I'll be moving on to decimals as my target teaching topic, and I've got a few in mind as well. Oh, one more thing I meant to say about length. In the English curriculum, which I'm working with, children are supposed to know about feet and inches. It's a ruler length is a foot long, and we've been linking it to trips to Subway. Foot long. Foot long is 12 inches because it's 2 6-inch sandwiches. 2 6-inch subs make a foot long, therefore a foot is 12 inches, and just getting them to pay attention to the fact that it is also a ruler length. So it becomes part of their thinking, and it's also 30 centimetres. So starting to be aware of it and notice it in the world around us. These children have missed out on so much because they've not started to notice these things, so they haven't started to interpret the world around them in that way. Of course, it's not all of them, but yeah, very startling. So if I was a classroom teacher just now, I would be thinking in the run-up to Christmas, I need to build in cross-curricular some activities where children are doing accurate drawing that involves measuring. Christmas craft activities, can I build that particular feature into it? Geography, maps, whatever I'm doing, scale drawing, let's get lots of measuring in, get them fluent with their rulers at this stage. Another thing I'm going to try and do as an intervention teacher is get them going with protractors, because obviously with small groups it's so much easier for me than for the classroom teacher. Right, so what else? I'm going to talk about being an intervention teacher and how it feels and how the children behave and how you make them love it. So it's an interesting journey as they come to life. You see their different characters so clearly. You've got some groups where every child is just sitting there ready to lap it up and learn, and their behaviour is perfect. You've got some who are terrified and are behaving oddly because they're terrified. They really want to learn, but they're scared to try. And then you've got the echoers. Do you know the echoers, who one child will say an answer and they'll instantly say it, and they are watching your face so closely for indications of whether the answer they've just said is right or wrong. In a lot of my training, I use Lady Gaga. Can't read my, no you can read my poke face. Teachers have to be like that, otherwise the kids are just going to guess by your response to whether their action is right or not. And it's a small number, but they're so skilled at it, and it's avoidance. And in these small groups, you can really tackle that. Some children need to play. The number of times children have built beautiful pizzas and put them in this box and then rushed out the room, and they've got the meter rule and they come back in and they're delivering the pizzas to you, or they're putting them in the oven, and they need regular brain breaks if they're really trying hard after years of not trying. In your session, brain breaks for play, brain breaks pop-its that I mentioned before, just de-stressing, just winding down, resetting their brain. Physical gym stuff, physical movement is great. I mean, you've got such a range at this age group. You've got some children who are really young and are desperate to play with cuddlies, and you've got some who are just focused, and some who are, especially the girls, who are heavily adolescent, incredibly moody. These, I have some stamps. This is my Super Octopus stamp, which is my stamp of the week, but I've always had some stamps, and children just love these in their work. Use them all the time to give them encouragement and positive feedback. But quick one, octopus, how many legs? Octagon, how many sides? Oct is always 8. It's a 5-second thing, but they get it. It's in a context. So I thought, final thing, I'll just run through, if you're going to buy anything for your job, if you're doing this job, this is what I would recommend. First is some sweet stamps. My pizzas, absolute godsend, just brilliant. I mean, you might have some of these things in schools, and if you have, of course, you can use those. These, found incredibly useful, just for de-stressing, but also for the children with the weakest maths, to help them see maths differently and make it feel like it's a different thing. Arrow cards, been real godsend for helping some children clearly see base 10 number where they didn't before. My pack of baby animals top trumps. Sometimes you just want a game because they've done enough hard working maths and you just want them to have fun and do some great maths and have a great maths experience at the same time. I have counting beads with me. Plenty of paper. I like my one little whiteboard, as I find very useful just for that. And someone will do some photocopying for you, because then you can just print off these worksheets that are free shared. And wherever I've done them, they are in Word to make them as adaptable as possible, so you can just change them. That one, the one fraction calculations one, if you have got that, there's an error there. That was meant to be a 12. If you've got that version, you can just change it before you print it. But I'll try and change that later today and make sure it's all correct if I haven't done it already. Okay, I think that's it. I've not seen any questions come through. If you've got any, please post them now, because I'm going to sign off in just a minute. If you're not typing questions, then I hope you love your teaching, or if you're watching on catch up. I will probably talk about this a bit more, depending on the feedback. If you have any thoughts, please share them. Please share them. The discussion, my last 2 weeks live streams have been on division, and the discussion's been amazing, and it's still going on, and I've been contributing to that this morning. This is new territory. We've never been here before, with large cohorts of children who are miles behind in all sorts of unpredicted ways at these ages. Please share your experiences across all age groups. Just put them in the comments if you think they'd be useful for others to see and contribute to the discussions. I'm working in different ways with different age groups at different times to challenge myself as much as possible. And I've stepped away from the teacher training just now because the world is just so different. I need to reground and reset and understand it as it is. If you want some teacher training, I'm doing a little bit when I've got time. So it's worth contacting me through my website, which is authenticmaths.co.uk. But mainly, have a great day. Take care. Hope that was of some use. Bye for now.